and a tool to help. So basically, everyone has obviously panicked because, let's face it, anything that Etsy updates us on usually leads to panic because it makes it sound like you're going to have to change everything. So I'll walk you through just kind of what I'll read through it and comment on it as we go throughout it, just so that it's really clear. And like it says here, the listing title tool is only available to a small number of sellers at this time, which is why I think that not everybody can see this article. But obviously, we all need to be able to see it because it's important because they're changing things. So what they're basically saying is they are changing search again. Now, I know that always ends up leading to panic from people because as soon as Etsy actually admits they're changing search, it seems really, really scary. But like I said, I think in last week's Q&A, Etsy is changing search literally every single day. The whole point of an algorithm is that it changes, right? It changes, it learns more, it changes, it learns more, blah blah blah. So we don't need to panic, but we just need to know what to do going forwards. So basically, what we have always known from Etsy is they have actively said to us, you want to write your title so that it makes sense to your buyer, right? They've always said that, and that hasn't actually changed. They're just doubling down on this. So they've always said this, but we have always known as sellers that by adding tags, broader tags into our titles, we can actually get better placement in search as a result. And so everybody has always just continued as they were going, yeah, we're going to write it for the buyer because obviously it needs to make sense for the buyer, but we're also going to put our additional keywords in here as well. Okay. And this is what it's saying here. So buyers tell us that clear, easy to scan titles help them feel more confident when browsing and choosing what to buy. And when an item is unique or handmade, it can be hard to balance sharing important details with reaching a wider audience. Absolutely, which is what I mean by saying, for example, we might start with the title with, wedding table plan eucalyptus style, right? Because that's nice and clear. But then we might also add in wedding signs. We might also add in, summer wedding. We might also add in like broader terms into the title to help with SEO. Okay. Often leads to longer, harder to read titles that make it more difficult for buyers to shop confidently. And especially in some spaces, some of these titles get really confusing. And also, if I'm being completely honest, there's a lot of bad advice out there about keyword stuffing, about not using punctuation in your titles. I know that quite a big creator encourages you not to use any punctuation in your titles to rank better in search, which has always been a lie, as it's never actually been the truth. But also, that is quite problematic because then it causes you problems. Then it causes your customer problems when they're trying to read a title and it's just a jumble of keywords that makes no sense to your customer, right? So this is what Etsy is kind of reaffirming here. Our search system is evolved to take a more holistic view of your listing, including titles, tags, attributes, descriptions, first photo, and even reviews to help connect your items with the right buyers, right? It's the stuff we've been talking about in this group for years. They have always been doing this for at least the last couple of years. Your title, your tags, your attributes, your descriptions, and your reviews. Your reviews is a new one. I mean, I've always kind of thought this way where your positive reviews help with SEO because the more positive reviews you've got, the more highly you might rank in search. This is kind of suggesting that maybe some of the wording in your reviews potentially is going to affect your SEO as well, which is interesting. Your first photo is what gets the click. So obviously that's going to help people that's going to help with your SEO because if your first photo doesn't drive that first click, then it doesn't matter what your tags and titles are because nobody's clicking on your listing, right? So this really hasn't actually changed that much. So that means that your title doesn't need to do all the work. You can focus on clarity, relevance in your listing titles while moving other key details to your tags, descriptions, and attributes, which will help you to show up to more interested buyers more easily and also help them feel more confident about making a purchase. Okay. Now, when I've actually read through it, I'm not actually 100% sure that they're outright telling us that they are actively changing something here. So my thoughts with this are that actually search is potentially not actually changing. They're just doubling down on this advice and telling you to basically you have to start making sure that your titles are more tailored to your customer and so that your customer can read it better. Okay. Now there is a chance and because they are actively saying it, my thoughts are, even though they're not saying that they're changing the algorithm or anything like that. My thoughts are probably that the weighting of what is important in search is basically that the titles being less heavily weighted as an important factor, right? So before, your tags and titles would always be your top weighted sections for including keywords for search. Your description would be next alongside your attributes. What this is suggesting to me is that potentially, tags probably going to be king, which they were once upon a time as well. Titles are maybe slightly less important than they once were, and then descriptions, attributes, and all of that stuff is continuing to be really, really important for your SEO. Okay, so Obviously, the same, why should I update my listing titles now? The reason they're pulling this part in is because they want you to make sure your title is clear to your customer, right? So if, I know your specific question, Ginny, around this was, should I change, what about if it's a bestseller? Should I change it? I personally am not going to be changing any of my tags and titles right now, and I'm going to see how things go, okay? But what I will be doing is I will be relisting new products. I will be trialing new listings with this in mind, with this guidance in mind, okay? So for me, number one, I'm not going to change a bestseller any ever, despite what Etsy tells me to do. I'm not going to, potentially damage, a listing that has got a bestseller badge. It's working for a reason. If things change and it completely tanks, then obviously I know that there's something that I need to change there. But I'm probably going to be, err on the side of caution with this one and leave them be. With some of my listings that are maybe not doing as well, what I might do is test a few of them. This is, if I'm being completely honest, this is not something I have a huge amount of time for, and I don't believe it's going to be a case of they've just switched something over overnight and all of a sudden you're going to stop showing the search if you don't do this. Okay, this is my a gut feeling right now, which is why I'm probably going to experiment with maybe tweaking and changing some of my, like I say, my lesser performing listings and see how they go. I will not be touching my bestsellers right now. I will, of course, let you know if anything changes on that guidance. And if I start to see, a real decline in things as a result of not changing things, I will absolutely let you know. But I don't anticipate that being the case. So, what we need to do is basically take this guidance on board going forward, because what I am understanding here is that they are, like I say, they are really going to be pushing for you to be really focusing on making sure that the title is clear. In fairness, we should be doing this anyway. The sidekicks that I've trained should be doing this for you, making sure that they are written with your customer in mind. We should always be using punctuation. We should always just be using our core keywords in the title, so they're a really important thing for your customer, plus any really, really strong ones as well. And so the only thing that I see changing really here is if, for example, you have your core kind of title, which is, say it is, I'm looking around for inspiration, say it is this hot chocolate scented candle, and maybe it is, say, a vegan wax, vegan soy wax, something like that. That's going to be quite important to my customer as well. So I might put my title as vegan soy wax candle, glass, vegan soy wax, glass candle, hot chocolate scent, right? Something like that. Because that's really clear to my customer what they're getting. They want to know what the flavor is or the scent is. They want to know that it is vegan, if that is, one of the selling points. They need to know it's a candle, obviously. They probably want to know it's in a glass jar, if it's in a glass jar, right? So that's kind of what I'd be thinking of focusing on. And where in the past I might have put a comma and then put something like, I don't know, gift for, Secret Santa gift for sister, right? Sister gift, something like that. You might have tried to expand out of just the very specific product that it is and kind of get into some broader keywords in there. That's the stuff that you are now being told from Etsy. You don't need to put that in your title. It's going to confuse your customer. It's not relevant to your customer, and it's not going to help your SEO anymore. Okay. So I'll just go through what they're actually saying is the guidance now and what makes a great listing title. So clearly state the item for sale like mug or dress. Obviously, that makes sense. Include the most important traits up front, like your item's color, material, and size. Streamline for clarity and scannability. So less than 15 words is very interesting. 15 words is quite a lot of words as well. Okay, so I think they're kind of what they're pushing for here is less than having your core kind of thing that your listing is, and then maybe one other tag. That to me suggests that's still okay. 15 words is a lot of words to describe most things, right? So they're just basically not wanting you to stuff every single keyword that you have into the title. Only include festivities, special occasions, recipient sales if they're essential to what the item is. So this is a really interesting one, and this is actually something that really is what we talk about anyway in this membership, and how I kind of teach things is we want to be quite specific with things like that. So we don't want to put gift for her into a listing if it's just if this, I don't know, this candle is a gift for her, right? But it's a bit vague, really. So I would be more thinking about, a hot chocolate gift or hot chocolate lover gift or something like that, getting more specific, right? But what this actual part of the guidance is saying is that you are only going to put this keyword in if it is super, super relevant to the product in terms of it is the the makeup of the product, right? So if this candle said happy birthday on it, it's a birthday candle, right? If this mug with my dachshund on it, it's not my dachshund, but with a dachshund on it, actually had, a Santa hat on it and it said Merry Christmas, then Christmas gift, for example. It's a very specific uh, festivity to the product itself. When we have things like Christmas cards, we're going to say it's a Christmas card, but we're not going to necessarily say it could also be used as a birthday card because it's just got a robin on there, so it might be a winter birthday card. It's not. It's a Christmas card, right? So we're just going to be using really, really specific recipient styles in the title if it is essential to what the item is, for example, the birthday candle, or if let me think of another example. If you have, say, a dog treat toy thing, and it is a birthday cake, and it says happy birthday on it, and you might then say, dog birthday treat because it is specifically for the birthday, right? It says happy birthday on it. If it could be, say it's I don't know, it's a pack of 3 tennis balls for dogs. Well, it could be a birthday gift for your dog, but it's not essential to the listing, right? So hopefully that helps you to understand like what Etsy means by saying an essential to the item itself in terms of the occasions and recipient types. Same if it says, best dad ever on the mug, then you might actually say, or Happy Father's Day to the best dad ever. It is a Father's Day mug, right? But if the mug just has I don't know, something that your dad might like on it, it's not a Father's Day mug. It is a mug for whoever, or it is a fishing mug, for example. It is not specifically a Father's Day mug, right? So you would put that in your tags instead of your title, is what they're getting at here. Move subjective words like perfect or beautiful to the description. Absolutely. This is not the kind of thing that we see coming up in E-Rank, in all of the kind of platforms that we use. We don't really see words like this come up anyway, so we wouldn't be putting those in our tags and titles because they're not strong descriptors, they're not strong search keywords, right? Try not to repeat words. We talk about this all the time. We don't want to stuff the same wording over again. We don't want to say, I don't know, Robin Christmas card, red and white Christmas card with a festive scene on it, right? We don't need to put the word Christmas card 15 times. We would say hand illustrated Christmas card with robin and festive scene on it, right? You don't need to stuff the word Christmas card in 5 times. And that's not changed. That's exactly what we've kind of spoke about in the past. Don't worry about adding info about price, delivery, or sales. We would never do this anyway. Obviously, that's all done separately. So then in terms of the guidance, right? They are telling us that if it is a noun like dress, mug, and table, keep it in the title. Clearly state what the item is, just once in the listing title, which is interesting, right? Just once in the listing title. It does make sense. And it is always difficult with things like birthday cards, Christmas cards, anything that is, there's only one way to describe it. It's always been difficult to vary your keywords in your title anyway. So you probably have only been using it once. Where you have things like where you have different descriptors for it. So for example, for me, I might say a wedding table plan, a wedding seating chart, and a wedding sign, 3 things that people search equally for my products, then that might be somewhere where I try and kind of weave all 3 in. So it could be something like sage green wedding table plan, banquet seating for wedding breakfast, right? Something like that. It's all different words. We're not repeating the words, but it's still encompassing the whole title is still encompassing what the customer needs to know about what it is, right? Objective descriptors, neon pink, extra large, and reclaimed wood. Yes, we would still put that into our titles because, again, it's descriptive to our customer, especially if they're looking at, a sign, for example, or a candle or whatever it might be, and they are looking for an extra large version of this thing that they are looking for, then you want that in your title so that that is clear for your customer. Aspirational search terms, gift for him, birthday present, and personalized gift. No, these go in your tags, which to be fair, again, if they haven't been very specific in the past, I haven't been encouraging people to use these anyway, but only putting them in the titles where it makes sense to broaden out those search terms. Look, we talk about things like, kitchen wall art, right? But if it is actually an illustration of a fruit bowl, you probably don't need kitchen wall art in the title anyway. You would put that in your tags, okay? Subjective descriptors, beautiful, perfect, wonderful. Again, this has moved to tags or attributes. Personally, I would say none of those 3 search terms are being searched on Etsy. Without looking, I would hazard a guess that they're not being searched. So you would use those in your descriptions and not in your listing. How the item is sold on sale and free delivery. Yeah, remove completely from the listing. You don't need to do this. This is how the Etsy manages this for you. So we would never be doing that anyway. And then unnecessary repeated words or phrases. Adult, unisex adult poncho, unisex cotton poncho. Again, I would always advise you not to be repeating words like that. And instead, you might be saying, unisex poncho, adult cotton raincoat, right? We're using different descriptive words anyway. So you wouldn't want to repeat these anyway, okay? And then they've given you some examples here. And this is exactly what, they're getting at. And when I said at the start, when these people on YouTube are, saying don't use punctuation in your titles, they're literally outright telling us, stop doing this, right? Just simplify it. You don't need dad t-shirt, father shirt, personalized Father's Day gift. Again, straight off the bat, you're like, what actually is this product? Personalized 100% cotton dad t-shirt, custom kids' names, small to XL. Perfect. Your customer reads it and goes, well, yeah, I know what that is. I'm going to click on it. Okay. So we talk about this all the time. Anyway, so I personally don't think this has really changed that much. It is literally just things like where they go, yeah, perfect for women's wedding engagement. Right. But actually and it's saying here, it's removed the wedding engagement from the title here. And this is an example of the where it says up here, only include festivities, special occasions, or recipient types if they're essential to what the item is. So if this moonstone ring was an engagement ring, then of course you would put it in your title, and you might put celestial blue moonstone engagement ring, 9-carat solid gold band, right? Of course you would include that. But if it is not specifically an engagement ring and you're kind of thinking, well, I guess you could propose with it. It might be an engagement ring. Well, you don't want that in there. And the reason that Etsy's really pushing for this as well is because they actually don't want, and we talk about this again all the time, this isn't anything different. They don't want to be pushing products in front of customers that are products that customer doesn't actually want, right? If you're searching for an engagement ring and all you're seeing is, these rings that I've got on here that are definitely not engagement rings and it's not what you're looking for, the customer gets frustrated because like, well, none of this is actually what I'm looking for. So it feels a little bit like they're trying to tidy up search a little bit as well to get really more specific about what they are trying to show to customers based on what they're searching for. So again, doesn't feel like much has changed there. And then again, obviously, on sale birthday banner. We wouldn't add this anyway. This is not something we'd ever do. But here, happy birthday dog banner. This is a really good example of where the occasion is specific and essential to the products because it is like I said before, a birthday dog toy, a birthday dog bandana, right? It is very specifically, it says happy birthday on it. It's for birthdays, okay? While removing certain keywords from your title supports readability, don't forget to move them to your listings, attributes, tags, and descriptions to help them appear in relevant searches. So they're telling us here, take it out your title, but don't just get rid of it altogether because you still want it for SEO reasons, which is what is giving me the inkling that they're not necessarily changing anything in search. And so we don't necessarily need to go and change every single one of our titles going forward. I would very much keep an eye on your traffic trends. I would very much keep an eye on your bestsellers. And I would experiment with new listings and with your current listings going forward to make sure that we are using these best practices going forward, but not necessarily going back and changing every single listing you've ever put out there, right? Because that is going to shake up the algorithms if you're changing everything, okay? So this is very much what's given me the inkling that they haven't changed anything. They're just going to start pushing for this kind of new best practice going forward, right? Attributes, power filters, and search engines and often appear as highlights on your listing. We've talked about this before. So your attributes are your when we go into, say, let's go to dog banner. That might have been a bad example. I don't know how many attributes they have, but you can see here, these are attributes that Etsy has actually pulled out themselves. So obviously you can't affect some of them. Under £20, your listing either is or isn't under £20. Star seller, you either are or aren't a star seller. On sale, your listing either is or isn't on sale. And then Etsy obviously gives its own Etsy's picks. And then interestingly, they've pulled out vintage here, right? Dispatched from Great Britain because they can identify I'm in the UK. And so they probably know that I want to get it faster. And so dispatching it from the UK is the best way forward with that. But your attributes come into play in places like this. So for example, under color, right? So if I filter by red, I don't expect to see blue bandanas, right? And frustratingly, that is what happens a lot of the time because I've filtered to find a red bandana and I'm not seeing actually a lot of red here. So this is what's really, really frustrating when people put the wrong attributes in here. So it wouldn't surprise me if this comes down the line further down the line. This was, funnily enough, my first ever job ever job in well, my first big girl job after uni was actually managing things like attributes and making sure that product listings like this were curated based on the right attributes, because in a lot of businesses people do use the attributes a lot more than typically people do on Etsy, because they're trying to narrow down the search to find what they actually want. And so when you then have a blue bandana like this, and you've just tagged it with red because, well, maybe you offer red as well, that's frustrating for the customer, right? Because I'm not going to click on it because it's not red. So we want to be being really specific with the attributes. Um, Tags are helpful when there's no matching attribute and a great aspirational or buyer-minded search terms like gift for her. So if we remember a while back, when the updated search requirements, they actually did say when you use a word in your attributes, you actually don't need to use it in your tags and titles, because your attribute acts as another tag. Right, so you actually don't need to repeat it. Now, most people will do anyway, and just to double down on that, but this is just basically kind of explaining the difference here. You know, your attributes is it powers the filters, and search engines look at that as well, because it's in the metadata behind the scenes of your listing, basically. So Google search will go, okay, this says the word red in it, or it says the word, boho wedding in the attributes. So you then don't need it in your tag as well for Google. Tags are then, whenever the matching attributes are not there, tags are then looking at what the next thing it looks at. And then your descriptions are scanned by Etsy to understand what your item is. We talked about this a while ago as well, about how Etsy is starting to use, and this was something that came up in one of the investor reports, where one of the developers, I think it was talking through the changes to Etsy search, and he basically did say that he let out this little nugget that they've never really admitted before, that Etsy descriptions are great for giving the algorithm additional context about what kind of buyer might be looking for your listing, right? So where there's not necessarily a tag and title that matches a buyer to a product, but actually Etsy knows that this buyer often engages with descriptions that have these words in it, and your word has a description in it, like, for example, boho. It's probably going to be in your tags anyway if you're using a tag like that, but it's just an example, right? So again, we want to make sure that these are SEO friendly. So the AI bots inside the membership, the description writer probably won't change. Tag writer probably won't change. I will update Theo, the tags and title generator, I think it is. So he writes your tags and titles for you. I'm going to retrain that one based on these new rules, so that your title is spat out a little bit more in line with this. To be honest, the titles that it spits out right now should be quite close anyway, but I'll probably just kind of train it on things like no more than 15 words, and none of these kind of less specific wording, just to make sure that it is more in line with this as well. So then they have talked about this new tool. I haven't got it yet. Don't know if you guys have. To make it easier and faster to apply this new guidance, we've created an optional AI-powered tool that suggests updating listing titles using your current title, first photo, and description, which is really interesting, right? So I would definitely play around with it. I would watch this. It just kind of talks you through how to use it. I would play around with it, but I would also, of course, make sure you are, applying your own logic to this and going, well, yeah, but that word doesn't make as much sense as this one. And I know for a fact that this word gets me a lot of searches, so I'm going to keep including that as well. So err on the side of caution with it, but equally, an AI tool built by Etsy is probably going to be almost as effective as the AI tools that I've built for you, because it will be trained on the same things. The only difference with the AI tools in the membership are they are based on your input in terms of your tags and titles and things like that. So if you haven't updated your listing with the right tags and tags and descriptions, then Etsy's only going to be going with what you've already given, what information you've already given it, right? So depending on which way around you do it. Okay, so interestingly, before you make any updates, download a CSV of your listings. You can use it to reference keywords from your original titles and update your tags, descriptions, or attributes as needed. This, I think, is incredibly important that they've flagged this, because what they're basically saying to you here is you can do all of these changes, but make sure you've got a copy of what it originally was, because if you start to see your views tank, you've done something wrong, and actually we were wrong with what we've told you here. So I found that very, very interesting, right? That they've actually encouraged you to do this. So I would recommend, if you're going to start playing around with things, do this. And then you can look at it and go, actually, well, my listing started to tank after I followed this best practice that they put in there. So I'm going to have to go back and change things. And it's probably that they're covering their own backs with this AI generator here, because this AI generator is not going to necessarily know that this search term is bringing you loads of traffic. So when it rewrites your title for you and it doesn't include it, and then your traffic starts to decline, you know then that it's that keyword that was in your title that was driving a lot of that traffic for you. So it's always a good idea to have a backup. The tool offers suggestions for English language listing titles that could benefit from this new guidance. It will become available to sellers with eligible listings over the coming days and will notify you when the tool is live for your shop. So just keep an eye on things if you don't have it already. Like I say, I haven't got it. I also haven't got the new Etsy ads dashboard. So as soon as I do have that, I'll hopefully be able to walk you through that as well. But there's a lot of things changing and a lot of things that I am waiting to get my hands on myself as well. So hopefully that's been helpful to just walk you through this. I'm just going to check on. Uh, Here. I've just seen your questions. Oh, okay. This is this is just from earlier. I think this says 2 minutes ago. No, can't find it, but I think that's maybe okay, so I don't think you have it either, the new view. So yeah, just keep an eye on in your dashboard when Etsy tells you that you've got this. But fingers crossed that kind of takes you through all of these changes. And I know, Ginny, your specific question was about how much time this is going to take us, and I would really like I say, really advise not, you said it gives us a lot of work to do. And what about bestsellers? Don't change your bestsellers and just focus on maybe tinkering around with some listings that are maybe not getting as much traffic, but use this best practice going forward. I will, of course, update you if I find that I start to see a decline in traffic because I'm not following these new rules on my existing listings, right? So hopefully that is helpful. Andrew, I think they're just saying we show up better if we don't subtitles. Yeah, absolutely, and that's always been the case. And yeah, very good summary. This is exactly what they're getting at. All right, so I'm going to jump now into the actual questions. If anyone does watch this as a follow-up